I bid you welcome, or welcome back. In this short little video I will show you these 3 little paintings that I made for the Day of the Dead. I don't have them anymore, I took them to the cemetery, this is a scan. I made this during the night from October 31st to November the 1st at my country of residence where my family members are all buried. Halloween is not celebrated, unlike November 1st and 2nd, which is All Saints Day and the Day of the Dead. And since I am a Satanist, I only commute with the latter while condemning the former. So I made these for the Day of the Dead. For preparation I did a very simple amateur ritual of drawing an upside down pentacle with salt on my desk with a single candle in the middle just a few hours before midnight on Halloween, and I held my left hand over the lit candle for a few minutes, symbolizing the left hand path. And just a disclaimer, when you do this, make sure to not burn yourself nor anything around you. Maybe have a fire extinguisher at hand. A nice thing that happened when I was turning this into a time-lapse is how the image kept falling apart, which was unintentional, but I prefer it this way for this little authentic visual glitches. Starting with the paintings, I used an A4 size watercolor paper that I separated into 3 segments with masking tape in order to make 3 separate paintings on one single page, and then I sliced them apart and took them to the graves of family members I visited the next day. I worked on these 3 simultaneously, trying out different things and intentionally making 3 different candles with flowers, not only making the colors different as if it was an Andy Warhol kind of project, but I actually made 3 different pieces with the same subjects. When I was making them, I didn't yet pick out which ones I wanted to take to whom. I simply went with an experimental nature of this process to create 3 different variations, though I did pick them out later based on the people whose graves I placed them on. The first one was my least favorite. I really carelessly placed those 2 flowers, one of them being a generic imaginary flower and the other one a tulip. That sounds strange in English. So I followed it up with a single colored background with the very strong glow effect from the candle, more of an imaginary scene with the different elements that are more like symbolic than parts of the same composition, which is a way to say that the different parts are not in sync with each other. Definitely gives you a different vibe. Also, I later on had to add a lot of white on top to make the glow that I over darkened at the start. So in the end I ended up with this more whimsical fantasy candle with this simple effect, and I could even say it was a unique one in the sense that it features 2 different kinds of flowers unlike the others. And this is the one with the candle with the brightest glow that went to my grandmother's grave, who died in 2018 before she could have seen any of the works I make and the ones that I'm proud of today. She has never seen any of my watercolor paintings because I started making them about 5 years after her death. No, not even 5 years, more like 7 years after her death, 6.5 maybe, something along those lines. The candle on the second painting I placed on a field. After making the first layer that shows the flame in the negative space, I decided to leave the edges of the top sides white, so it's a bright daylight candle surrounded by green grass and colorful tulips. One that got to be the piece for my grandfather who died in 2023, who was placed in a grave next to his partner. I felt that this painting, with it being open and more busy, more colorful and full of more figures surrounding one candle, described my grandfather and his found family with his sort of adopted grandchildren and all the other shared expanded family of just many people that he was close with, unlike me and the great majority of my family, who are like very small, very we meet each other once a decade kind of family. That sentence sounded incorrect. Aside from the family aspect, their grave is at a much more open and wide area in the cemetery, where this piece belonged simply just more. The third one is the piece with the bright red roses against the darker green foliage and a bright candle flame against a starry black night. The most dramatic, the one with the highest contrast, sort of the most edgy and cool, you know, possibly the most emotional one as well. While I was having second thoughts about where to place the first two while working on them, I decided first that this one will go on my father's grave, who died in January of 2025, so the same year as I'm recording this. And I felt that this was more fitting for someone who liked Ozzy Osbourne and Halloween, the band, not the holiday. Also just the more dramatic nature of the piece fits the person who died both most recently and the one who died at the youngest age of them all. And you know, also any use of the color black. Seasoned artists are going to kill me for saying the color black. Any use of black and the use of roses didn't fit any of the other people due to their presence, making any piece that much more dramatic, so I immediately knew who this one fitted the most. While these paintings were drying, I tested out my laminator that I actually inherited from my dad on some empty watercolor paper just to see if it will work at all. And first I thought it won't because the plastic just came right off, but then I realized that it wasn't warm enough yet, so the second try it worked and it remained in one piece. And I didn't record myself laminating these paintings, I only took photos because we were already ready to go to the cemetery in the morning and I didn't want to mess around with recording it. I left these on the graves that I made them for. And also a thing about laminating any artwork that you make. While I talk about it, I will insert a time-lapse of a different paintings I made a few days later inspired by the event. It was a painting made from a random splash where I just put some color on the paper. Then in the blot I saw a spider crawling on a school. I don't know if anyone else saw that same thing in this blot. If you laminate something, I suppose that there are materials that will allow you to remove the plastic later, but just this regular paper cannot do that. It gets ripped if you try to remove it. I tried it on the practice paper and I don't have it anymore. I threw it away without taking photos. Just please trust me when I say that. I would say that it gets ripped likely every time. Maybe some really strong multimedia paper can handle it or something. I wouldn't bet on them. And of course, plastic will dissolve differently than paper. It can also get scratched if you bend it. Both the plastic itself can break, and I tried bending the practice papers, and the watercolor paper inside also gets broken, like the spine of a book, of a what's it called, soft cover book, paper cover. There it is with a it breaks like a paperback book. There it is. There's the word in English. I will just wholeheartedly say that if you laminate something, it just becomes something disposable immediately. I did the lamination because this way I could just leave these paintings outside without them soaking into pieces for the first time it rains, or most likely even before that from the morning dew the next day. And I did a little research on people laminating watercolors, and it's possible. Like you can do this if you want, but many people advise against it, and I do join them in that case. I do see laminating watercolor paintings as a way of making them even more fragile and hurting their preservation, especially if it's a personal and unique piece for you that will be much more important for a longer period of time than just some random little candle and flower paintings that I did. So I advise anyone to keep them behind a piece of glass in a frame or inside a binder if you don't want them displayed, and preferably inside individual openable plastic sheets if possible, or separated by sheets of acid-free paper, and always spray them with some fixative, of course, in both cases. And if you have access to a scanner, always scan them or take a photo of them in as high quality as you can. You know, many watercolors, if not all of them, will fade eventually, and you know, just if you have any sort of traditional painting, it is always the best to have at least a digital copy, even if it's a scan like the ones that I make where the raw scan itself is not that high quality and I need to do digital editing to bring back the contrast and the saturation of the original. I always try to match them as perfectly to the original as I can instead of trying to improve upon them. But of course, if you want to like boost the contrast beyond what is on the physical paper, you can always do that. That is just the way I do it for myself. And that was a very long way of saying be careful while laminating, and I advise against it. Now, a few thoughts about this painting you are looking at right now. This was completely improvised on A5 size. I made it from what I saw in that ink blot. Two things I found interesting in this recording is one, how I once again went way too dark with the school and I used pure white, like straight out from the tube with a minimal amount of water to glaze over the thing in order to get that right bone color in the lighter areas. And the second one is how I messed up the anatomy of the school so badly that later I had to spend a lot of time restoring it, especially around the nose area, where I had to mix out the color of the bone as one thick mixture and apply it over these parts in order to modify the shape of the hole inside the skull and change the entire shape of it. It's a cool thing to look at from a few days later. Aside from this, the painting was a quite fun and straightforward process. I only wish I somehow brought the skull a little lower, and also looking back at it, the spider is completely breaking the perspective. Just look at the skull and the pink vase and the spider and see how they are located in space compared to each other, and you will see where the mistake is. But aside from little things, it was a fun and lovely thing to work on. And after all of that, I thank you so much for watching. Next time I will come with a digital portrait painting if everything goes well. And have a nice day. Create something, even if it's some short-lived pieces that will either be destroyed by the elements out in the cemetery, if not immediately stolen by someone. Yes, that did happen to my father's grave. Someone was literally stealing things off of it. But most importantly, don't forget to have fun while doing that. Farewell. I have a feeling that through this entire recording I was able to roughly keep up my voice, and I'm only a little moderately afraid that I will listen to the recording and I will be like, oh yes, so in today's painting video we are talking about these watercolors.